Finland, June 5th, 1960. A beautiful summer day, sun shimmering off the water, a gentle breeze rustling through the trees. It seemed like a perfect day for a camping trip. 4 teenagers full of life pitched their tent on the shores of Lake Bodom. They never knew that darkness lurked nearby, that their laughter would soon be silenced, their dreams brutally cut short. The next morning, a blood-soaked canvas tent stood as a silent witness to the horror. 3 teenagers lay dead, victims of a brutal attack. The 4th, barely clinging to life, bore the physical and emotional scars of the night. The killer had vanished into thin air, leaving behind a mystery that would haunt Finland for decades. That was the story of the Lake Bodom murders, a story that has captivated and terrified me since I was a boy.
The first time I heard the whispers of Lake Bodom, I was just a boy. My grandfather, a man who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, told me the tale in hushed tones. He spoke of the young lives lost, the brutality of the crime, and the mystery that lingered like a shroud over the lake. His words painted vivid pictures in my young mind. I saw the sun glinting off the lake, the teenagers laughing, oblivious to the danger lurking nearby. Then the sudden shift, the intrusion of violence, the blood staining the once pristine canvas of the tent. The story in all its gruesome detail both terrified and captivated me. It was a story that stayed with me. It burrowed under my skin, worming its way into my thoughts, demanding to be understood. As I grew older, the fascination never faded, it intensified. Years later, the whispers of Lake Bodom still echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the unsolved mystery that had gripped the nation. The victims, no longer nameless faces in a gruesome story, had become real people to me, each with their own dreams and aspirations cruelly cut short, their stolen futures a constant weight on my conscience, a reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that lurks in the human soul. I pored over every detail of the case, hoping to find some overlooked clue, some piece of evidence that would bring clarity to the chaos. Newspaper clippings, police reports, witness testimonies, each document a fragment of a larger, more sinister puzzle. The more I learned, the more the mystery deepened, each revelation leading to more questions than answers. The lack of a motive, the brutality of the attack, the chilling lack of evidence. It all painted a picture of a crime that defied logic. It all pointed to a darkness that defied explanation, a malevolence that seemed almost otherworldly, a darkness that hinted at something more than human, something that lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike. I wasn't alone in my obsession. Others, too, were drawn to the mystery, each hoping to be the one to unravel the truth. The Lake Bodom murders had become a cultural phenomenon, spawning countless books, documentaries, and even a metal band named after the tragic location, each adding their own theories and interpretations. Theories abounded, ranging from the plausible to the downright bizarre, each one a testament to the human need to make sense of the senseless. But none could definitively answer the question that haunted us all: who was responsible for the carnage at Lake Bodom? The idea to visit Lake Bodom had been brewing in my mind for years. It wasn't just a fleeting thought, but a persistent urge that kept resurfacing. It started as a whisper, a nagging feeling that I needed to see the place for myself, to pay my respects to the victims. The more I read about it, the more I felt compelled to go. As time went on, the whisper grew louder, evolving into a full-blown obsession. I found myself spending countless hours researching, trying to piece together every detail. I wasn't the only one drawn to the darkness of Lake Bodom. My friends, too, felt the pull of its tragic history.
2 friends, Sarah and Mark, shared my morbid fascination. We often discussed the case, each bringing our own perspectives. Sarah, a history enthusiast, was captivated by the historical context of the murders. She wanted to understand the events that led to that fateful night.
Mark, a self-proclaimed skeptic, was determined to debunk the supernatural theories surrounding the case. He believed there was a logical explanation for everything.
Our motivations might have differed, but our destination was the same. We were united by a shared goal. We were drawn together by a shared desire to confront the unknown, to stand on the hallowed ground where history had been forever stained with blood. The stories we had read and the images we had seen haunted us. We packed our bags, our curiosity and apprehension growing with each passing mile. The journey ahead was filled with uncertainty, but we were ready to face it. We were about to embark on a journey into the heart of darkness. The road ahead was long and winding, but we were determined to see it through to the end. The drive to Lake Bodom was long and somber, a journey through winding roads that seemed to stretch endlessly. The closer we got, the heavier the atmosphere became, as if the very air was thick with unspoken stories. The cheerful chatter that had filled the car at the start of our journey dwindled to an uncomfortable silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. The weight of expectation, the knowledge of what had transpired in this very spot, pressed down on us, making the air feel almost suffocating. We arrived at the lake as the sun began its slow descent, casting long, ominous shadows across the water, painting the scene in hues of melancholy. The air was still, heavy with the scent of pine needles and something else, something indefinable and unsettling, a mix of nature and an eerie presence. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the gentle lapping of the water against the shore, a sound that seemed to echo the whispers of the past. A chill ran down my spine as I stepped out of the car, the cold air wrapping around me like a shroud. It was as if the very air we breathed was heavy with the memory of the tragedy, each breath a reminder of the sorrow that lingered here. It was impossible to ignore the feeling that we were walking in the footsteps of something terrible, a path marked by shadows and echoes of the past. We made our way towards the memorial, a simple stone monument erected in memory of the victims. Their names were etched into the cold grey stone, a stark reminder of the lives cut tragically short. Standing there, surrounded by the silence of the forest and the weight of history, it was impossible not to feel a sense of profound sadness. The tranquility of the setting seemed at odds with the brutal act that had forever stained this place. As I read the names on the memorial, I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. It wasn't just the cold, it was the feeling of being watched, a palpable sense of unease that settled over me like a shroud. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of blood orange and deep violet. We decided to set up camp nearby, in a small clearing just a stone's throw from the lake. As we unloaded the car, I noticed a dilapidated wooden cabin nestled amongst the trees, shrouded in shadows. It looked ancient, its once bright paint faded and peeling, the windows boarded up with rotting planks of wood. An air of neglect and decay hung about it like a bad smell. It seemed out of place, even in this desolate setting, the kind of place that whispered secrets to the wind.
What is that place?
Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. She too had noticed the dilapidated structure.
Probably just an old fishing shack,
Mark replied, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Nightfall brought with it a sharp drop in temperature. We huddled around a crackling campfire, the flames casting flickering shadows that danced and writhed in the darkness. The silence was broken only by the crackling of the fire and the occasional hoot of an owl in the distance. We shared stories and sipped lukewarm beer, trying to ignore the growing sense of unease that permeated the air. The darkness seemed to press in on us, closing in like a suffocating blanket. The shadows cast by the firelight seemed to writhe and contort, taking on sinister, elongated forms.
Did you see that?
Sarah asked suddenly, her voice tight with tension. She was staring intently into the darkness beyond the reach of the firelight.
See what?
Mark asked, his voice betraying a hint of nervousness. He followed her gaze, his eyes scanning the darkness.
I thought I saw something moving in the trees, over by that old cabin.
It's just the wind, Sarah. Relax.
Mark chuckled nervously, but even as he spoke, I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. We weren't alone. I could feel it. A presence, cold and unseen, was watching us from the darkness. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. It was a scream filled with raw terror, the kind of scream that sends chills down your spine and makes your blood run cold. It came from the direction of the old cabin. A voice, raspy and filled with malice, echoed through the trees.
Get out! Get out now! To be continued.